welcome back to the final session for the Finland Pavilion Expo 2020 Smart Cities Conference. This session, I'm really looking forward to this. It's probably the most important topic of all. It's smart water management. And Finland, as many of you will know, is one of the leading proponents and experts in the management of water and providing water consultancy services. So we've got a lot of knowledge for you to tap into over the next hour. Please send in your questions. You can use the questions tab at the bottom of the screen to send in questions to the panel. And we're going to be talking about introducing, IoT and data management, data systems to manage water and water leakage. And it's probably the most important issue facing the Middle East, so do get involved. Right, now we have a wonderful panel of speakers today. So Dr. Topi Hela is the Managing Director of the Finnish Water Forum. Mona Arnold is the Principal Scientist at VTT Technical Research Centre in Finland. And Gary Conway is the Head of Energy Sales for the MEA region at Nokia. So we've got all parts of the water sector covered. And I want to come immediately to you, Dr. Topi. Now, you are part of something called the SWIM Consortium, or the Smart Water Management Consortium. Can you tell us what is that? And then perhaps elaborate on where it fits into the bigger picture of promoting smart water management.
Yes, thank you. We have a large project which name is SWIM, and it comes from the smart water management. And we started 2 years ago talking to Finnish water utilities and technology companies and IT companies, and also outside of Finland, to find out what kind of interest there are for smart water management. And smart water management is very often understood as smart water metering, and the target is to reduce non-revenue water. That's the water which is not billed and it's lost in the water network. And that is certainly one of the main topics in our SWIM project also. But we have extended it to what we understand as a smart management. So we also have their water quality monitoring, asset management. There's a lot of pipes underground. There's a lot of pumping stations, and their asset management is included. Then we have included also cyber and physical safety, security in the project.
So you talked about non-billed water. So that means leakage, does it? Or are there other things that come under that category?
Yes, it is the leakages in the network. And it can be really a lot. Normally it is between 30 and 50% of the water is lost. And the best cases, they are around 10%, what we know. So there is a lot of space to improve this situation.
And so I know that in the Middle East, I've written and read a lot about the problems of leakage from aging pipe networks or whatever. But and 40% is the number I've sort of heard referred to in this part of the world. But are you saying 30 to 50%? That's worldwide. That's a global average, is it? Everyone's facing that.
Yes, that's the global average.
Okay. And what is the reason for that high level of wastage? I mean, is it because things move once they're in the ground and so you get cracks in pipes, or is it poor construction in the first place, or is it just the nature of water that it finds its way through holes?
I believe it's all these three, and especially in Europe, our challenge is aging pipe work. Many of the pipes have been built in the 1960s and 70s, and they are coming end of their life service. And it's not just the age of the pipe, it's also what kind of material is being used, and also what kind of ground is. And because of these problems, we do have a lot of leakages in our water networks.
And you said in your comments that it's not just about smart water management. It's not just about water meters. It's about asset databases and asset management, I think. So it's a kind of holistic approach to managing the water networks. Is that correct?
Yes, that's definitely what we are aiming in this project.
Okay. And do you, just before I go on to Mona, just in the Middle East, it's obviously a water scarce region, and as I mentioned, they've got high levels of water wastage or leakage. We're also going through this privatization process and PPP process, so they're bringing in private investment. So do you feel that the Middle East can gain quite a lot out of adopting smart water management processes?
I think that when there is privatization, it is definitely interesting for the companies to reduce the water losses, so that will increase the interest. And especially in Middle East, the water is very valuable, and it doesn't make sense to leak some of the water on the ground.
Okay, and if you said average leakage might be 30 to 50%, or non-revenue water 30 to 50%, and the best is about 10. So what we're saying is there's perhaps an opportunity to reduce non-revenue water by something like 20 to 40%.
Yeah, definitely, yes. If we think about the Dubai city, there are over 3 million people, and if we could reduce the leakages by 10%, that would be water for over 300,000 people, and that could reduce the need for new water capacity, for example, desalination plants.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of the vast majority of water in this part of the world comes from desalination, which is a high consumer of energy, and therefore we're talking about energy savings as well. Ultimately, is what this is about, isn't it? In this region. Thank you, Topi. Fascinating points. A great set of keynote thoughts. If you have questions for Topi or any of the panelists on this issue of water management and smart water management, please use the questions tab at the bottom of the screen, and we can see them coming in as we go. Okay, thank you, Topi. Now, Mona Arnold, you're Principal Scientist at VTT Technical Research Centre of Finland. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what VTT Technical Research Centre of Finland is. But then, just following on from Topi's comments, there's an obvious case for introducing smart water management. It's a very clear case. But if it was so obvious and easy, we would have done it already. So it's obviously not easy. So what are the challenges?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Richard. Yes, VTT is one of the largest technical applied research organizations in Europe. We are some 2,000 people covering most technological areas that has a relevance in today's society. And non-profit, limited company though, and we provide research services. In this SWIM project, I act as the coordinator and project manager, so I at least should know something about this area. As we look at the challenges, you're asking about the challenges, and I tend to see challenges as opportunities, actually. And as Topi was mentioning, talking about that, and also you, Richard, mentioned that we are here in a water scarce country where water is a valuable resource, and also in addition to that, the water sector is the by far the most expensive part of society's infrastructure, much more expensive than, for instance, electricity. And it's also very energy intensive. Not only the production of clean water, but also pumping that is seldom optimized. So what I see is that Middle East has, with having to produce most of its drinking water, it has really all motivation to become a forerunner in smarter water networks. So more broadly then, about the challenges, as you said, why isn't there yet? And I see actually I can look at it from at least two sides, and the first one is maybe the more straightforward one is the technological side. Naturally, with the digitalization of the society, it's now taking place. The real transformation is now taking place due to the fact that we now have the technological enablers. And in the water network, digitalization is based on reliable sensors. And keep in mind that all the models that are built upon these sensors, using artificial intelligence or machine learning, they are just as good as the data that have been used for the training. And unfortunately, most often the quality of the data is not always known or addressed, and this can mean that maybe the models are not, as until now, maybe not really, there have been some profound discrepancies between the model and the reality. And this is actually one thing that we are really seriously addressing in this project as well. The reliability of the data that the sensors are collecting and communicating further on.
If I can just interrupt you there, Mona, briefly, sorry. What is wrong with the data that's coming at the moment? What is it that sensors are sort of previous generation and not so accurate, or is it poor maintenance of sensors?
I think it's both. And what we're also foreseeing is that it really takes me to another subject that we wanted to talk about. We see that in the future and already now, you can see that that using intelligence, you can get from like a stupid meter and just collects and transfers the data further on to self-calibration system, so they can really actually be able to calibrate. And also there are with using different modeling or computing models, you can also more easily recognize and quickly recognize anomalies in your data. So this is also something that is taking place at the same time. I was saying that there are several points which are challenging, and I think also actually the business case as such can be in some respect a challenge. It does promise a lot: smart water management, enhanced situational awareness, real-time monitoring, predictive control, crisis response and recovery, even self-healing operations. But it's still quite new in the water world. And there are not that many cases yet that can showcase the business value of investing into, let's say, hundreds of sensors and building up some intelligence on it. I have a couple. There is one from South Africa. The eThekwini Waters has reported like 67% of reduction in mains burst after installing some smartness. And also in Romania, there is the Nova Water who reduced their energy consumption with 20% through smart pressure management.
Just on that first point, there 67% reduction in mains bursts through smart management. So I presume a mains burst is when there's too much pressure or something at some point. So you can actually use the smart management to reduce water flow to prevent a catastrophe, a burst. It's not just about seepage.
Yes, and making or optimizing the pumping system, which is that saves also at the same time a lot of energy.
Amazing. And so, if I understand what I've heard so far, the essence of smart water management is about good quality sensors providing calibrated data to some central point. Is that the sort of essence of it? And that means you need. Maybe this is a good point to go to Gary at, actually. Does that mean you need sensors kind of all over every pipe and at every junction, every pump and at every reservoir? And if so, that's a lot of sensors. And how do you get them in there? Gary, I'll come to you on that because you're Nokia and probably the expert on these sort of things.
Thanks, Richard. I think the industry is at a point now where the implementation of these types of sensors is predominantly achievable. We're seeing the advent of new open standards based on low power, wide area communications. It really is allowing low cost, ubiquitous access to low power IoT sensors. And the data, which then enables new technologies within the water industry, drive a great deal of change. We're talking about automating and optimizing operations via these technologies. We're able to provide new services. We're able to support new applications and business models. So really, for technology side of aspects, we're ready. The low power, wide area communication technologies such as cellular, network narrowband, NB-IoT in abbreviated terms, is a technology that started to mature, providing cost efficiency now. We're not at the the introduction to the market. We're now really quite facing a point where it's price positive for enterprise to look at deploying. We're able to enhance battery life. So some of the aspects of maintenance is now starting to cost into an operational environment like a water utility. And that all provides real economies of scale, Richard. So it really is, potentially quite cost effective to roll out an NB-IoT and the capabilities that presents to a utility.
Is it? I mean, I imagine, because in my mind, because sensors are small things, I imagine that this doesn't cost very much. But you talked about, economies of scale and whole networks. I imagine actually this is quite capital intensive to get the system set up properly. If you compare it to the costs of pumps and pipes and things at the moment, what sort of level of investment is required to create a smart, as a percentage of an overall capital cost? What sort of level of investment is required?
I think each network is different, so it might be unrealistic to provide an actual percentage. But what I will say is when you're on a digitization journey, look for vendors that give you an open access, an open standard approach. Don't create a bespoke environment. Look for vendors that are able to implement your legacy whilst you're on the transformation journey. It's never a big bang. If someone comes in and says it's going to be a big bang, the risks and the physical ability to do that is questionable, especially in a brownfield. So for us, it's really around look to play or work with vendors that really are giving you a standards-based outcome, open and interoperable system, so you can use all of your previous investment. There's no regret spent there. And maybe ask for an outcomes to be built into an agreement. Certainly, we in Nokia are very willing to do an outcome-based agreement with our vendors, so that we've both got some pretty serious interest in delivering those outcomes.
In the Middle East region, there's a lot of talk about privatization and PPPs, public-private partnerships for water networks and water production, water distribution, but also wastewater as well. And normally, in my experience, a PPP consortium will have a contractor and a utility, and so is it the sort of thing that Nokia or the tech, if we're introducing smart water management into the PPP, do you anticipate that companies like Nokia, technology companies, would actually get involved as investors in things like this?
Look, I think without doubt there's a need for new business models. Any sort of digitalization, and especially with water networks, is really actively now being explored through the adoption of industrial internet solutions to converge, sort of various aspects of assets. So new approaches are now needed to be able to enable water utilities to cost effectively and rapidly adapt their businesses. This open standard approach start potentially bringing and utilizing the architecture for new business cases and new areas of serving customers that weren't typically open to water utilities previously. we think about it, they've got a point of presence of pretty much every subscriber physically to the doorstep. So there's some really smart business models potentially that could really enable the financing of these type of infrastructure digitalizations and investments, which are, they're significant investments, so there needs to be a return that is achieved against those.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. And now, as I said before, if you have any questions for our panelists, please get them in using the questions tab at the bottom of the screen. We'll be delighted to hear from you. Topi, if I can come back to you, a couple of questions. Firstly, I'm a little bit curious about where the leakage occurs. This 30 to 50%, it just seems like such a huge amount of water that's being lost. How much is happening in the pipe network? How much is in the reservoir? How much is it leaky taps, leaky faucets at the user end? Do we know where it's occurring?
It is mostly from the leakages in the network. Of course, it can also be that someone has forgotten the water flowing in his apartment, but mainly it is the water leakages which we have.
Okay. And so the meters the sensors that we're talking about, these are mostly for water flow measurement, are they? What is it we're measuring with these sensors?
It is mainly water flow that we are measuring, but we can also measure pressure, because if there's a leak, we see a change in the pressure. And then we are also very interested in the water quality measuring, monitoring. And that is related to the water safety. We want to be certain that the water is clean and it doesn't cause any diseases to people.
And how, I don't know if this is a good question or not, but if you've got sensors all over a network and they're underground, are they battery driven? How are they powered?
Well, if they are at the electric, close to the electric grid, then they can be from the electricity network. But very often they are not. We have the piping underground, and they are based on the batteries, and the battery life is very critical topic.
Yeah, it must be, because batteries running in a sort of damp environment must be tricky, technically tricky. Okay, and one final question before I go to Mona again. Just Finland is seen as a global leader in water quality. You've got, I don't know, is it 600,000 lakes or some incredible number of lakes in Finland, and it's more water than you need. How come you're so expert in water leakage management? Because I imagine that's not really a problem in Finland.
Well, it is a problem to us too. As I previously said, that the aging infrastructure causes leakages, and for us it's not just the leakages. It can also be that we get snow melting waters in the water network in the springtime.
So you get inward leakage.
Yeah, so we have to look in two directions. So that makes
doesn't that give you extra revenue water?
Well, the quality isn't that good, so we have to look also into that topic.
Okay, fascinating. Well, thank you for that. Now, Mona, what needs to be done then? I'm thinking here about the Middle East specifically, but maybe this is something that's common around the world. What are the sort of actions that governments and utilities and investors need to take to sort of to achieve smart water management?
Thanks for the question. Go first from the perspective of the government and the utilities. Skills. We need people in the water sector who knows about IoT technologies and digitalization at large. This is not really something very specific to the water utility sector. This is, I think, the type of the work. The work is changing everywhere. how you work. And digitalization, it enables remote operations and also predictions of future events, so you can more easily plan for operational actions. And you've seen this during these pandemic times. Has been really, really useful and got a push there. But at the same time, you cannot just put in only IT engineers, although how smart they are, because you still need to know how to deal with water. So in a crisis situation, for instance, in a case of a cyber or a manual attack, the manual processes must take over a digitalized automation. I mean, the people must know what needs to be done. Everything can not yet, maybe not yet one day, be fully automized. So that's a big question. Then from the technology point of view, I think we also already a little bit touched upon this, the sensors that are put into the system. I mean, basically the utility operators, they don't want to change their batteries on a monthly, these batteries on a monthly or even yearly basis. So they need to be low power, low consuming. But at the same time, when you have you have two-direction communication, you have security issues that you have to need to take care of, that the power requirements from the grid is also increasing, so you need to have to really develop this part as well. And then the third part is also trust in data sharing. And that comes with the sense of security. And this is really also important, as we were discussing already, the PPPs, the private-public partnerships, that you need to share the data. You have a system that comes with the sense of security. I mean, water is basically a really essential part of the society's critical infrastructure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You mentioned security at the beginning, earlier in your comments there, particularly cybersecurity. Is that a big issue for the water sector?
Yes, it is. Cybersecurity is a big issue everywhere. It's a little bit, this story about the turtle and the hare, I believe, and there is always, the turtle was always one step ahead, and the other one came out and never got to reach the other one. I mean, when IT technology develops, of course, also the ways of hacking develops, and if you look at the water sector, which I just ran over a very recent study from the US, there some 10% of all water utilities has reported critical vulnerability and 50% high vulnerability. That's already half of all the utilities. And the worst thing is that all utilities don't even know if they are vulnerable or not. So I think we have an issue there, and that's also something that we are really seriously addressing in this SWIM project. And I'm saying it's not only of the impact of it of an attack. Of course, we have the physical impact. For instance, there was an incident in Australia where raw sewage leaked out it was really because of a cyber attack. And you had although only 800 cubic meters of the raw sewage was released into the nearby rivers and parks. You had a serious environmental disaster and an awful smell and dead fish and marine life. And it's not only it's also a risk for the consumer when we're getting into the remote reading of water consumption for billing purposes. I mean, if this information consumption pattern gets into the hands of the wrong hands, I mean, this provides really excellent information about this person's habits, like when he or she is home, or this is a personal security risk, and this part is taken very seriously, at least by the Finnish utilities.
Okay, thank you. Now, final question for you, Gary, before I go to the submitted questions. there's all this talk about 5G. We're in the next generation of telecoms communications, and what we're talking about here is, very sophisticated sensor-based grids. Is 5G needed for smart water management, or do we have the capability already?
The short answer is no. But let me add a little bit more detail, Richard. Really, why I say that, most of the use cases that we see at present, 4G cellular technology is more than capable of giving the types of performance around latency and bandwidth that the use cases require to operate over today. What I would say, though, is with any large investment, look at your vendors that are providing solutions. Look to see if they offer a transition to 5G. Because you never know, use cases that you're satisfying today, there's always going to be use cases you don't know you need to resolve in the coming years. And we're talking a 10 to 15 year, at least, life cycle here. We're seeing battery life on the NB-IoT sensors now 10, 15 to 20 years. So, we're looking at a network that's going to be there and supporting use cases that perhaps we don't know. So maybe think about whether you've got a path to 5G with the minimum reinvestment requirement. Look to see if you, for example, have a core infrastructure that is ultimately via maybe software to go to the 5G platform. I think water utilities, really due to site locations, are often able to utilize the current 4G technologies. For me, if you're making that sort of investment, talk to your supplier and make sure you've got a good path to any sort of upgrade.
It's interesting that from your comments, Gary, just now and earlier, you're very much saying, at least I think you're very much saying that the utilities and the network owners, they have to think 10, 50, they have to think long term, and they need to have conversations with their vendors about something that they don't even know about, 15 years down the line. It's an interesting, you have to think it's a very long term perspective.
It really is. It really is. I can't understress when we talk Industry 4.0 solutions, we talk, digitalization, mission critical networks. I think the simple analogy would be you would never build a house and neglect the foundations, because as soon as you've built the house, you run the risk of it not being suitable to support what you're trying to do. And the same goes for any sort of digitalization plan. You've got a lot to think about. Even if you look at IoT ecosystems today, it's still characterized by quite a lot of fragmentation, both by vendors and devices. So think very carefully, get the foundations of any digital transformation right sized for today's, tomorrow's, and always have some unknown bandwidth requirements within it.
Okay, thank you. Now let's go to some questions. You can submit questions to our panelists using the questions tab at the bottom of the screen. So please, we've got about 20 minutes or so remaining. Take the opportunity to send in some questions. Toppy, if I can come to you with this first question, and this is quite interesting because obviously in the Middle East we have a very extreme climate here in terms of temperature, humidity, and dust. I guess Finland also, you have a very extreme climate at the other end of the spectrum. But how do you adapt the swim technology to different regions, taking into account these different climate conditions?
Well, when it comes to the drinking water network, it's underground, and I don't see that the climate affects very much, unless if you are very up north in Finland, you might get frozen to pipes, but you don't have that challenge in Dubai. Yeah. And in addition to drinking water network, we are interested to manage also the stormwater network, and there, of course, the climate has an effect, and especially when we see climate change, and that really increase the extreme weather. That means very hot rain, storm, and also dry season. And if we get suddenly a lot of water, that will bring challenges to the stormwater network.
Okay. And do you, maybe this is one for Mona, what projects have you got in the region at the moment, in the Middle East region, if any?
Not in the water sector, as far as I know. I mean, we're quite a big house with different services, but in the water sector, we unfortunately not yet. But I hope that after this we will. But well, Gary might have something.
Hopefully, and so what are you targeting the governments then? In terms, actually, maybe I should clarify. Swim Consortium, is this a technology provider, or is it a consultancy providing advice, or is it a contractor, at-risk contractor doing the installations and the operations?
Well, yes, the reply is yes. It's an ecosystem of research organizations, applied research organizations, VTT, and the School of Applied Science. And then we have technology providers. We have Nokia on board. And then we also have Finnish utilities, cities, and a consultant also who is sort of looking into the last innovations in the field. So it's quite a large ecosystem.
It's a huge range of expertise, but in terms of if I am, a Middle East water utility, would you provide me with? Could I outsource my water management to you for 10 years, or are you providing consultancy advice?
We would consult, and then of course, I'm talking on the behalf of VTT, and then of course our private partners like Nokia and the technology providers that we have, those who are providing smart pipes, AI, AR services and solutions. I mean, we can sort of, I mean, you're looking at a digital system for the water utilities. You have the platform upon where you build your capabilities, and we have those capabilities represented by different companies, and then the platform that as Gary was saying, agnostic from but that Nokia has developed. And then I must say that we have a Finnish Water Forum, Mr. Topi, his organization has also, we're talking about, I think, between 100 and 150 companies and organizations in the water sector that he can draw in when necessary.
Okay, thank you. Now, I've got a question here. Just so that I'm spreading the questions around, I'll put this to you, Gary, but maybe it's actually for one of the others. How is this different to GIS SCADA integration for water supply and management?
Look, it's a great question, and without going into deep technical, basically the GIS SCADA is a system where you're managing the location, you're managing some devices, you're managing assets, potentially fault systems, using SCADA technology as a medium. There's a solution. The solution that I've been discussing and strategizing about today is really around how we can implement the new opening standards, the new lower cost of NB-IoT type technologies as potentially an alternate or a complementary way of managing the overall network. One of the things that we like to really be able to do within Nokia is be able to present, manage, report multiple technologies, multiple vendors in one open standard platform in our operations center. So, I always think things are complementary until you can do the business casing and planning to prove that you need to go down a certain path. But I hope that's answered the question without going too deep.
I think so. If the person who submitted the question has if you feel that that's not the full answer, please send in a follow-up question and we can go further. Okay, now Topi, there's a question here about Expo 2020 Dubai. So what are you hoping to achieve? You're obviously part of the pavilion, and you're going to be promoting the Finnish Water Forum and the swim project. What will you be doing at the pavilion?
Yes, I could shortly tell to audience who Finnish Water Forum is. We are a Finnish platform organization, and we were established by 5 different ministries in Finland over 10 years ago. And the idea is to put together the know-how we have in Finland around water sector. And today we have over 130 members. It includes research institutes, universities, some water utilities, technology companies, associations, and our mission is to find sustainable solutions to global water challenges with Finnish know-how and technology, together with local and international actors. And that's the reason why we are here in Dubai. And first time we will be visiting end of October, and you are welcome to meet us during that time. And the second time we will be during the official Water Week in Dubai Expo, and that's in March 2022. And at that time,
part of Expo, the Water Week, or is it separate to Expo?
It is in the Expo. The whole week is for water at Dubai Expo, and the Finnish pavilion is reserved for us during that time. So you can come and meet us at the Finnish pavilion at the Expo in March 2022.
Excellent. Okay. Actually, I've got a question here that has been submitted, Topi. Now, I think we touched on this earlier, but the questioner may have missed it. What are the main factors contributing to leakage?
Well, it is the leakages in the water network, and the main reason is aging water network, and it also can be the variations in the pressure, and it can be chemical rusting, and it can also come from outside if there is a railway track or a road which cause vibration that can cause breakages in the water network, and the best way to find these and avoid leakages is to monitor, to measure the flow in different parts of the network and also the pressure.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're coming to the sort of closing part of the panel. I wonder if I can just go around each of you for some closing thoughts. Maybe Mona, if I start with you. So, what do you hope to happen in the next, 2 or 3 years regarding, the SWIM consortium and the adoption of smart water management? Are you wanting to sort of get embedded with government utilities in the coming years, having them use your service, or how do you think this? How would you like this to play out?
Yes, thanks. I foresee, VTT is developing, it's not only consulting, we are developing new innovations as well. And one of the areas where we are quite good in is, we are looking at the 5G applications, we're looking at cybersecurity, enabling technologies, AI, MLs, and so forth. So we hope to give our contributions here. In addition to consultancy. Then when we look at the SWIM project, we are facing that we're going to demonstrate it all in a real environment in the project, and this will serve as a reference for the whole world, and that we can then scale up. With new demonstrations, with new innovations, you always face new problems or new challenges. So I foresee that after this, we're gonna just maybe move the direction a little bit and grab new challenges and put up new projects, and even more internationally than now. And I hope to see some Middle East players together with us. That would be very nice.
I I would like to stay in touch about this because I think it's such a big issue in the Middle East at the moment. And we also, as we've talked about earlier, the privatization of this sort of separation of water production from electricity generation. This is creating, it's really opening up a new industry in the region. You know, the sort of water supply sector separate to electricity, and companies like Aquapower and these big, private developers, I can see them really getting into the water sector. Well, they are getting into the water sector in a big way, so I can see a lot of opportunity.
There is, and that's actually a very interesting area you're touching upon that we also are working with, like this ecosystem and new business models, which also Gary was mentioning, that and that also between utilities, because there is a lot of win-win situations you can achieve with cooperation, especially between the water and the energy utilities. And
I imagine that with the PPPs are much more about private investment in ESG criteria, environmental, societal and governance issues are much more important than ever before. And so I could see having this kind of expertise being actually quite a big selling point for the investment, for the actual investment companies as well as just from the government. Okay, thank you, Mona. Gary, Nokia's got its fingers in everything. It's a telecom data technology company, so we're at the sort of cusp of 5G. Is water that important to Nokia? I mean, I've never thought of Nokia as being a water player before.
Oh, absolutely. Anything that is driving a need for a mission business critical environment, where people will suffer, health will suffer in the event of a failure of the network to be able to fulfill services. We're actively strategizing within our company to serve enterprise organizations that need these mission critical networks and applications, and this digitalization journey to really realize and automate and be able to bring that quality of service to their customers. So we're very, very active in enterprise. We've got over 1,000 what we call mission critical networks globally around the world in our enterprise division, where we're doing both fixed and wireless solutions, IoT solutions to industries such as water, power, utilities, and other areas of enterprise. So it's a key part of our strategy. Our CEO is very, very supportive and vocal on not only serving the traditional marketplace of service providers, but using that high grade and high resilient technology in industry as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Now, Topi, perhaps we can finish where we started with you. What are you hoping for from Expo?
Well, we're hoping to build good contacts to our members to solve global water challenges. And of course, in Dubai Expo, we are looking at the MENA region. And we have been before active in the area. We have had some projects in Egypt, and we're looking now also for Dubai and the area. And we see that there's a lot of potential for new technology, and the smart water technology is something that we have a very good situation in Finland to promote. We are very strong in water management, but also in digitalization, thanks to our technology companies like Nokia and research institutes like VTT. So we want to have a comprehensive solution in smart water management, not just water flow metering, also to reduce water losses, improve asset management, and not to forget cyber and physical security of water.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you to all three of you, in fact. I think probably we've covered everything for today, and thank you to the people who've sent in questions for our panelists. It's great to have you with us today. Topi, Mona, Gary, fantastic job. I wish you lots of success in your initiative with the Smart Water Management SWIM project, and I hope that Dubai Expo 2020 is a big success for you, and hopefully we can stay in touch as well, because I really am keen to stay to keep up to date with this important topic. So thank you all. See you soon. And on behalf of the Finland Pavilion, this brings today's conference on smart cities to a close. So on behalf of the Finland Pavilion, thank you everybody who's been with us today throughout as well. It's been a fantastic success, and we look forward to seeing you at Expo. See you.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.